Hello, everybody. Time for March 2014. College previews to resume. We head to Westwood to talk about the UCLA Bruins, who last season did win 10 games. And a lot of people think that they're going to do even better this season. They returned the majority of their starters, including quarterback Brett Hundley. By the way, he is a dual-threat quarterback who's already amassed a ton of yardage, both through the air and on the ground, in his first 2 years. He's a redshirt junior. And he definitely is the heart and soul of that UCLA offense. They'll run the one-back, four-wide receiver spread offense, and it's capable, again, of being a touchdown machine. In the backfield for UCLA, Jordan James, and you get two receivers back in Jordan Payton, also Devin Fuller returns, so there is experience there as far as skilled players. What about the offensive line that did a real good job in 2013? Well, you returned three of them, but the offensive lineman that could really make UCLA a true weapon up front is a transfer from the University of Miami, and that is guard Malcolm Bunch. Malcolm Bunch, a graduate student, decides to finish his career as a Bruin, so he gets one more year, and that will definitely aid the Bruin offensive line even more. Defensively, the linebacking core I thought was a true strength of this team. We'll talk about them in a second. This year, I think that the secondary is actually going to be the strength of UCLA, which in years past wasn't always the case. But they returned nearly everybody from a secondary that was in the top 40 in the country in pass defense. And I think they'll be even better this year. The corners are solidified. And these corners, I mean, they kind of play like the Florida Gators. They play that tenacious, defense. They're very, very athletic. Fabian Moreau on one side, and on the other, Ishmael Adams. Adams, by the way, will be returning kicks and punts. So you're solidified at the corners. UCLA at times will run that 4-2-5 defense, or the 3-4. When they run nickel, you're going to see three safeties. Run to go forth, Anthony Jefferson, and by the way, Priest Williams, who got quality playing time as a freshman last year. So you got lots of experience in the secondary. And even better news, Bruins fans, they did a real good job in recruiting as far as secondary. Several blue chip athletes have already committed to UCLA, so those guys can get worked into the rotation. So as far as the secondary, they're very experienced, and by the way, they've got backups like crazy, as athletic as they are. So, real good job for UCLA on that defensive side. Linebacking core, two of your best four linebackers are back, but the guys you lost, they were really, I think, the ones that made UCLA's defense click, and that was Anthony Barr and also Jordan Zumwalt. You won't have them. However, Eric Kendricks, the veteran, he returns. And the guy with an incredible upside, we saw it last year as a freshman, Miles Jack, played Ironman ball, played both sides. In addition to linebacker, he was also a running back. But see him play more predominantly linebacker this time. He was the Pac-12's offensive and defensive freshman of the year. Yeah, he was that special. And a lot of people think he is the best outside linebacker in college football. And by the way, the defensive line for the UCLA Bruins, a couple of veterans back, and those tackle Kelly Clark, and also Eddie Vanderdoes at the defensive end. UCLA, though, doesn't quite go as deep as far as dependable depth on that defensive line. But linebacking core, I think they'll be okay. And of course, secondary is where I think they click the most. Looking at special teams, where I mentioned that Adams will be returning kicks and punts. Punting was good last year. Expect that to continue, but they have to improve on place kicking. They were a bit inconsistent a year ago. Schedule-wise for UCLA, first game of the year, cross-country at ACC Virginia. It'll be a 12 noon kickoff. We bring that up because it'll seem like 9 a.m. for UCLA, so they have to get acclimated from that Pacific to East Coast time change. Sometimes teams from the West Coast have a hard time doing that. And then second game, you should beat Memphis at home. And then the third game against the Texas Longhorns. And that game, not in Austin, but in Arlington, Texas at Cowboy Stadium. Talk more about that game a little bit later. And then you get 12 days to prepare for Arizona State in late September on a Thursday night for the Pac-12 opener. Arizona State does have weapons on offense. So that could be a track meet there at Tempe. And should be able to beat Utah the following week before your toughest game of the year, and that is against Oregon, and what could be the first of two battles between those two teams. Of course, you have the Pac-12 championship at the end of the year, so we could have a rematch there. And the next two games are on the road, but both should be wins, Cal and Colorado. Early November, Arizona at home. And then, dangerous game, got to play at Washington. The Huskies could be trouble. And you do get a couple of weeks before you have to worry about your crosstown rivals, USC Trojans, November 22nd. 6 days later, you wrap up the season against Stanford. The Cardinal, they may not look much. They may not look like much now because of a lot of inexperience, but David Shaw teams are very well coached. Of course, we know about their offensive, defensive lines, and they should be a little more experienced by the end of the season. So UCLA, I don't think is getting them at a good time, even though I know the game's at the Rose Bowl. Best case scenario, hey, enough defensive players back. Offensive-wise, I still think they'll be very, very good. With Hundley coming back, that helps a lot as far as the quarterback experience. Jim Mora has proved how good of a coach he has become so far, in the Pac-12. UCLA could run the table or be 11-1 at the worst and win the South, win the Pac-12. If they win the Pac-12 with an 11-1 record entering the Pac-12 championship game or better, then they are going to be in that college football playoff. Worst case scenario, an early season loss to Texas. Remember, Charlie Strong, the Texas coach, has already kicked several players off the team and suspended some others. If you lose to Texas, knowing that, that says a lot about how good of a coach Charlie Strong is, and also, too, that doesn't say much about UCLA. That might mean that we overrated them, and that means more losses will probably be on the way. That's really a shame because I think UCLA is a program that's getting better. I do think, though, of the upside for UCLA, I think they have enough talent on both sides of the ball to make a lot of noise to at least win the South, but I do think they'll lose at least one regular season game somewhere, and they'll go to the Pac-12 championship game, which this year, by the way, is going to be in Santa Clara, California, home of the San Francisco 49ers now. Candlestick Park will be history, and it's no longer the division record best that hosts the game, a true neutral site. As I just mentioned, I think Oregon, though, gets UCLA in the Pac-12 championship game. I think UCLA will finish 11-2, go to a major bowl game, but I think they'll finish outside of the playoff. So that's my pick on UCLA, an 11-win season, maybe 12, if they can wrap it up with a bowl win. That's my look at UCLA. We'll see you next time.